Wanna fight?
This is an addendum to my previous study on the leg mount ride position. It will explore an option from when you only have a single leg of your opponent's trapped. When working the leg mount ride, your opponent may be able to free a single leg without rotating their hips. If you keep control of the hips and the triangle locked, you can still retain control over a single leg, which will continue to prevent your opponent from standing. And while this position does offer control, it does not contain many offensive options. This position is essentially half guard, where you would normally look to sweep, stand, or regain full guard. But what about offensive options? Here we see the bottom half guard position being worked on the opponent's right leg. The attacker manages to secure a grip with his hands and then immediately gets the tap. This is Hodger Gracie black belt Ollie Geddes, and this is one of his favourite moves that he calls the Dogbar, and here it's left his opponent clutching his right knee in agony. So what happened there? It's basically a knee bar that's applied from the half guard position. By locking his legs and extending his hips, Ollie's able to hyperextend the knee. But can it work with punches involved? Well, here in an amateur MMA match, Ollie uses it to sweep and submit while absorbing minimal damage and leaving his opponent grimacing in pain. Now let's take a look at a match from ACBJJ where Alexander Trans has control of his opponent's hips and is in a near single leg mount. He then triangles his legs and sprawls his hips back, immediately securing the tap. Notice how his opponent is slow to stand and then struggles to get up due to the injury that's been caused to his knee. Now, with multiple examples of pop knees, this is clearly a very powerful technique. So let's take a look at what's going on. Here Bernardo Ferrer gives a demonstration where he controls his opponent's legs as if he was working for an over-under pass. Therefore, he calls this technique the over-under kneebar. He triangles his legs across his opponent's calves and then, making sure his hips are above their knee, he drives his hips down and lifts his calves up. This applies a vicious knee bar onto his opponent, which in the demonstration he applies very slowly. And here we see Kazushi Sakuraba performing what he calls the Senkaku knee bar or triangle knee bar. He controls his opponent's legs and hips and then triangles his legs over the opponent's calves with his hip above the opponent's knee, and then drives his hips down and lifts his calves up to get the tap. So we have seen this technique work in gi Jiu-Jitsu, no-gi grappling and amateur MMA, but what about professional mixed martial arts matches? Here is Marcin Held, who has been using the leg mount ride against the fence on his opponent Will Brooks. As Brooks stands, Marcin hooks the leg in an attempted knee bar. While unsuccessful, Marcin will attempt this again later in the round on the opposite knee of Will Brooks. This time he's able to get Brooks grimacing in pain with the correctly applied knee bar, and reportedly the knee popped, but he was still unable to get the tap. Here on the Ultimate Fighter 19, Mike King locks his hands together and triangles his legs around the knee of Nordin Taleb. He then holds onto it and uses it to sweep and get on top while still applying the knee bar. Taleb's knee eventually pops and visibly hyperextends, and while the shock of onlookers is apparent due to the visible damage, King's unable to get the tap. So we can see it's caused damage in MMA matches, but what about the submission victory? For that, let's go to Brazil. In a match between Jorge Rodriguez and Ken Jackson, Jorge is able to secure the knee bar and get the tap. While you may not consider this a primary attack, with the element of surprise, this knee bar comes on quick and can catch your opponent when they least expect it. Give it a go in training and take care of your training partners.